Welcome to Scale Like a CEO, the podcast where we dive deep into the minds of successful entrepreneurs and business leaders who've mastered the art of scaling companies. Today, we have an extraordinary conversation with Sean Languedoc, a 5-time founder who's built companies across media, clean tech, and now AI-powered outsourcing. Sean shares invaluable insights about why technology alone doesn't create change, the critical role of human behavior in business transformation, and how companies can navigate the overwhelming world of AI adoption. Whether you're a startup founder or leading enterprise innovation, this episode is packed with practical wisdom you won't want to miss. Let's dive in.
Sean, thank you so much for joining me on Scale Like a CEO. Just to get us started, if you wouldn't mind, give us a 90-second intro to yourself. And you're a 5 times founder, so tell us a little bit about that background as well.
In 90 seconds or less. I'm a business founder who leverages technology to solve a problem as opposed to building a technology and trying to find a business that needs it. So I've been in media a couple times. I've been in clean tech once. I've been in industrial, in trucking basically. And then I switched gears and I got into people. And in that space, I started off 3 pivots ago with a model that was more around bringing people into Canada based on immigration problems with tech workers in the United States, H-1Bs. Converted that into a international recruiting agency. Converted that into what we are now, which is Outforce AI, which basically is a way to filter out all the noise out there about what outsourcing agencies do, because they all say they can do everything, and helping companies get better matching to the agency that actually has the right people with the right experience and the right culture and the right soft skills to get you the right solution in a faster time. So that's what we did. That's 90 seconds. I hope that's or less.
Yeah, well, we can dig into all those a little bit more. I'd love to hear, in the work that you're doing today, what's the biggest problem you see in that industry and how are you solving it?
Well, the biggest problem that we solve for is if you want, in any growth company, there's a period of time where you're going to outsource something. Either you've got a core group of engineers, and I'm talking about engineering or data science. You got a core developer team that is your lifeblood, and they're building your core product or fixing the problems with the product as it scales up. And eventually you need to outsource something. Either you need to build APIs or connect to or a big client comes in, you need to build a new front end. So something causes it to be outsourced because you need speed and quality. And the problem with that is that when you're looking for outsourcing, when you're looking for an engineer to hire, the good ones are hard to find because they're hired and it's a slow process. In outsourcing, it's the opposite problem. You have too many companies out there. And so you look to a friend, like you say, hey, Justin, do you know anybody who's good? And you may know somebody who's good, but you might have been in HR tech. And what I'm in is health tech, totally different constraints of industry. You need to have some knowledge of HIPAA, EMRs, and all those things. Or in finance, charter banks and stuff like that. There's just so many constraints in various industries. So you got to know the industry as a starting point. Otherwise, you're wasting 3 months training them on that industry. Secondly, you've got to have the depth in the tech stack, because if I need more people, I need to know that you've got them. And so the problem with the referral business is you might get the wrong kind of an agency, or even if it's the right agency and it's well referred, it might not have the right people at the right time. So all that takes too much time to find out who's good at what, who's got the right people when you need them. And that's what we've solved for, because we've got 79,000 companies in our database, 3,000 of them in the United States. We know who's good at what industry, what their bench strength is, and what tech stacks. And those are just the starting points. Then you get into due diligence and all those other things. So we take all that risk and burden off of it and ends up being very successful.
And so you've led businesses, founded businesses in different, industries and segments. So I'm curious, what led you to where you are today and deciding this is the next thing I'm going to build?
It was the side of the desk, actually. I was building a company in Calgary, which is kind of like the Houston of Canada, that was doing these analogies. The Houston of Canada is Calgary. The company was Uber meets oil field trucking. So the problem in remote resource-based extraction of anything, trees, oil, coal, whatever it is you often don't know where the trucks are, and you deal with a few suppliers who provide the services, and you're relying on their dispatching. The solution is to know where all the trucks are and have multiple suppliers, and then basically call in the one that's closest to your site to move something based on an empty available truck. Increases efficiencies for everybody. That's the solution we solved. While I was doing that, Calgary was going through a downturn in the oil industry itself and was looking to transfer to more of a tech-based economy. They're trying to attract tech-based companies. And so I just decided to help out Calgary. I just moved there recently. And, they had all these reservoir engineers who were really good at mathematics sitting around unemployed because there wasn't a lot of drilling going on. So I hooked the mayor and a few people down to California, where I knew a lot of people at Google and Facebook and a variety of other companies. Said, hey, you want to build, and at the time, the President Trump was going after immigration policies, which made some sense in some sectors, but not in tech, because there's always an undersupply of really good engineers. So he was going after H-1Bs, going after specifically Muslim countries, and really good engineers in mathematics tend to come from Middle East. Obviously, Israel is a great place, but also happened to be that Syria and Iran, which were banned countries, have really good engineers, and they were working for Facebook, Google, and all those companies, not feeling very welcome in the United States. So we would bring them up to Canada and surround them with these reservoir engineers, really good at math, and away you go. You had a Facebook office, Google office, and other offices like that established in that market. That's one thing led to another, and then that was the side of the desk thing. As I said, it became an international recruiting agency with people recruiting for us out of South Africa, Eastern Europe, all these other places where great engineers come from. And then COVID happened, and we had to pivot because we weren't bringing anyone to Canada anymore. And that's how I started OutForce.ai. Crazy.
That's so great. Yeah. Well, it's crazy how kind of a side project like that can turn into something else.
Yeah.
I'd love to
true.
pivot. I'd love to pivot a little bit and go to, some of the companies that you founded in the past.
Mhm.
And, I think there's having, five rounds at it.
Mhm.
I'm sure you have a lot of lessons learned. And so I'd love to hear, about some of the hard lessons. And if you think about, some of the really challenging times in one of your startups, what was it and how did you get through it?
Well, pivoting through COVID was the big one, which I just described, so I won't go back to that one. I would say that an overreaching lesson is that technology changes nothing. Technology is invented all day, every day, and there's great technology solutions to a lot of problems. What doesn't change as fast are people. And one of the best lessons I got was one of my early companies was helping big media advertisers buy television spots through data migration between the inventory that was available and the media buying agencies. And the pitch was, hey, you don't need to do all this data reentry to figure out what's available. We've got it free online, kind of like how stock trading changed with E-Trade, and travel industry changed with Expedia. It was now available to the end users online. And anyway, long story short is some places we weren't getting very far. And my board advisor said, yeah, business would be so easy if people weren't involved. And today we're seeing that in AI itself. Individual users are using ChatGPT or Claude or any one of these other LLMs at their office. But at the enterprise level, AI is not really being leveraged as well as it could. And that is because people are afraid of making mistakes. There's security risks with using AI in some cases. And these bots, these agents that are being built overnight, theoretically replacing a CRM, are very fragile and breakable. So there's not a lot of traction with them. So AI has a great potential, but deployment at the enterprise level is a much slower train. And so for those startups that are out there thinking that they've got the latest solution, you really got to look at the people that you're selling to and getting into their headset. What are the risks for them? So, and that's a long answer, and I'll make it even longer with a great story. That company, which was data migration between big enterprises in media, the first iteration of that was to disrupt the industry itself and take out the agent, replacing, like Expedia replaced the travel agent with an online marketplace. And the guy who stopped me from doing that, many people were telling me it was a great idea, we should do it. One guy said it was the stupidest idea you ever heard of. And the reason was, he said, if you're telling me to replace my agency with an in-house team that does all the media buying, what changes internally at our organization that will make that a big risk for me, the decision maker? And the answer was, instead of the agency getting fired because they blew the campaign, he gets fired because he blew the campaign, right? So he's not going to take that risk. So we pivoted into something that was much more data-driven, more than disruption, and it worked out really well. So that was a pivot that went from disrupting the entire industry to enabling the industry. And our pitch was, no more data entry. You can bring back the 3 martini lunch and go back to the way you used to do business.
Well, there's so many things actually in there that I want to pull out. But one is the thing that technology doesn't necessarily fix things, or technology can't create change itself. It's people using that technology.
That's right.
And it makes me think about, throughout my career, I've led so much organizational change. And I've led projects where we had executives who said, we are just going to buy this software. And by having this software, then it fixes this problem. And it always flopped.
Right.
However, I've led organizational change where we focused on individual behavior first. And it was, what do we need our people to be doing first? And then let's find the software that actually supports and enables that behavior to become more efficient. So I can think of, there was a process where we took it down to just like nuts and bolts and really clunky, where we were establishing behavior and people had to submit these reports in Microsoft Word documents centrally, and we would check them in, and it was really clunky and awful. But then we found the software that would actually enable that. And then people were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Now I want to use the software because we have this behavior that we've learned, and this makes it easier. And so 100%. I think there's a big lesson there for executives and founders in understanding that element of people behavior change is much more complex and difficult than just flipping the switch on some software.
100%. And that's what we're going with OutForce.ai right now. So we've got the overwhelm with using an agency. That's one part, but every CEO, every senior leadership team right now is being asked by their board, hey, what's your AI strategy? What's your AI strategy? And sometimes if it's an older industry, it's pretty much a deer in the headlights. CEO doesn't have time to look and research AI. CTO is busy with IT services aspects of things if it's a traditional industry, or a development team that's busy with their existing product if it's a SaaS company. There are people using, obviously, things like, Copilot to help generate faster coding and stuff like that. But a real AI strategy is looking at the behaviors of people, and you nailed it. Like it's not about throwing a drill in when you need a hammer. It's about finding a tool. It's about finding the business process or process, depending on whether you're Canadian or American, finding that process and shrinking it down, because if you add technology to a terrible process, all you're going to need to do is scale up the problems. So first figuring out what is the process that we need to review. Does AI solve some of that or all of it? And then applying the tools that are appropriate to that problem. And so now we're really going in and we're helping companies do sort of an audit of what's the low-hanging fruit in terms of human behavior at your organization, business processes at your organization, and AI that's available to at the center of that sort of Venn diagram, fix and accelerate your business.
Yeah. And I'll bet one of the things that's missing is the process for a lot of organizations. Like there are these labor intensive things that are not codified into something that could be automated or that AI could pick up.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I'm thinking about though is the two kind of behaviors or competencies that are so critical right now. One that I've written about and spoken about quite a bit is critical thinking.
Yeah.
It's needed so much more now so that we can examine the outputs of what AI is doing and making sure that it's actually what it needs to be. But
Right.
the other is curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Because, what I hear you talking about in the adoption of AI are individuals and organizations that are not curious about what it can do, because a lot of it is just playing. I mean, I myself, like I subscribe to almost all of the primary, like the main,
LLMs.
platform, the
Yeah.
the LLMs, and I use them regularly, and I pit
Mm-hmm.
them against each other. Like just this
Totally.
morning,
Yeah.
I wanted to do something, and so I'll do the same prompt in ChatGPT, and then I'll copy it into Perplexity, and I'll see how they answer. Surprisingly, this morning, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but they came up with almost the exact same answer, which was quite interesting. And I was like, all right, well, I should probably feel good about this one. But so many people are not getting curious about what it can do. And I think those people are going to be left behind very quickly.
Well, more important. So you're bang on. And by the way, I use Claude to write the prompt because Claude's really good at language, and I use ChatGPT to execute the prompt. So I have Claude write a prompt for ChatGPT. I tell it I gotta find another agent because these LLMs are really good at getting prompts, so they are really good at writing prompts, and they're better at writing prompts than I am. So anyway, that's a shortcut to success as an employee. But you're right. When we do this exercise with companies, we try and have those people that are experimenting with AI, just like you are, percolate, and those people end up being the leader of a project. It's no longer silos. It's a question of it's AI can work so well horizontally against departments, through departments, that if you get somebody who's really proficient in understanding the logic of how AI is working, then that person is probably going to be the project leader and rise from, a junior role to a very senior role quite quickly based on their curiosity and continuous learning mindset.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So one more topic I want to dig into, as you look at the companies that you have scaled, I'd love to hear about how you have kind of grown through, organic growth through leaders. So often, a company started as the founder or maybe a couple of people, and that's great. And you can operate. But once you pop over 25, 30, 35, it's time to start building layers of leadership in the organization. How have you gone about that, or what challenges have you had or lessons learned in doing that?
Many, I would say they go through phases of what I call the squares. So 3 people start the company, then you get to 9, it's a bit of a different company. Then you get to 27, it's a very different company. Then you get to 81 and it's a really different company. So you get that sort of, it's when you hit those square numbers, it really makes fundamental changes to the organizational structure and what kind of people you need. And the area that I've been focused on through my career has been, because I've been building tech companies, is engineering. And the CTO, for example, like a lot of mistakes people make in early stage of companies is, like me, a business founder with no real technical chops. And I'm building a tech company. This is in the 90s. Your engineer was your key asset, right? And same through SaaS companies through the 2000s. But now with AI and vibe coding and all these other tools, you can get a product to market that is viable enough for a customer to try without a lot of technical expertise. My recommendation is you don't hire the engineer until you know what you need, because too many people give up equity to that person for which they lack the expertise. And then that engineer is a great bootstrapper, can build something with duct tape and string. But then you get to the point where you're scaling up, let's say like the 9 to 20, 27 range, where you're going to get some significant funding. those VCs are going to look at the talent and capability of somebody to build out that team. And that's true with other areas at marketing. Are they a CRO or are they a really good individual contributor? And what ends up happening is your individual contributors, if they can't rise to the level, are going to be out of the company or take a big gulp in ego and move into a role that is less than senior leadership team. So you have to be prepared for that and think through, just as you think through other things like financing. What is this financing going to do to impact my next financing? So same thing with hiring. What is this hire going to do, and where is this person going to fit as we get to the next level? And then think of, if they are that person that can grow with the company, awesome. That's who you want to be with. Like Harley and Toby, who work at Shopify, a big Canadian company that's grown globally, those two have been together all the way through, and some of their other leadership team. So think about that when you're partnering with somebody. Are they just a great scrapper with grit, or can they inspire leadership and be an inspiring leader to build an organization around them? That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, it's important to think about who you're surrounding yourself with and that you're going to grow with.
Yeah.
Sean, what does the future look like for Outforce?
Well, right now it's looking great because everyone is overwhelmed with AI options and they don't know where to take that first step. And I'm not talking about like ChatGPT prompts and stuff like that. I'm not talking about personal use. I'm talking about something that really gets into the operations of a company and moves the needle, like 10% growth in EBITDA, that kind of an impact. And there's a lot of companies that are kind of lost, not knowing what to do. They've got overwhelm and FOMO, and we're there to help them solve that problem. So I think we're in a great space, and we've been replacing a lot of people with AI ourselves. We did a ton of research we had 25 people at one point. Now we're down to 5 in terms of researching what's out there, both in AI tools, in agencies and who's in that agency, and how to interview and do due diligence on these things. We've done tons with AI. So it's been, we're eating the dog food.
It's great. It's great. Well, you've got your work cut out for you then.
Yeah.
Sean, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sean at outforce.ai or through the website. It's not .com, we're only a .ai. Happy to connect. And I've got, for selecting an agency, for example, I've got a whole playbook, which I'm happy to give to anyone who connects to me, because I know a lot of these early stage companies are going to be doing some outsourcing. It's only for engineering or data science, but you could probably apply the same rules if you're outsourcing to a SDR, BDR company or an agency for marketing. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to ask the right questions and make sure you get the right answers.
Great. Well, Sean, thank you so much for the time today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you, Justin, and have a great day.